Okay, so you want tricks and tips on how to style long hair, and that's what I want to give you. But I've been trying to figure out the best way to do that, and if you are watching this, maybe you realize this is actually one video out of a series of 3. If you haven't already checked out the first 2, I'll link them at the very end of this video so you can see them. But it's a whole series where we go through problems and concerns that happen with long hair, and then how to avoid those concerns, and now how to style in the shape that I was talking about in all these videos. The best shape for you. Babe, you know what I think we should do?
What?
I think we should do this video, teach them how to style your hair here at home, and actually walk them through a morning routine.
Let's do it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, right?
Yeah.
It means you have to get your hair wet. You cool with that?
Let's do it.
Hey, Kevin, are you cool with that? Hey, Benny, you guys cool with that? That's Kevin and Benny, the little guy. Kevin actually has an Instagram page, and he is just staring right now. You should check out his Instagram page. It's kind of cute. I'm actually wearing one of his shirts. Dog Dad. Yeah, you guys are cute. First thing we got to start with is shampoo or cleaning your hair. Hair texture, I guess, is where we would start with all of this. And if you're trying to create volume, we need to have some of that oil removed. So that either comes from shampooing your hair, but if you're waking up in the morning, you just want to refresh it, then dry shampoo is definitely an option. So first things first is we need to get our hair clean. And I guess realistically, if we're really going to show you what a morning hair looks like.
It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Cause baby, I feel real good and I wish I would.
It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now.
Everybody watch out.
Okay, so that is unfortunately what a day in the life at the Hickox house looks like. This is probably the perfect time to say if you're new here and you stuck with me this far, you'll probably do anything. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get notified every Tuesday when I bring out a brand new video about hair. So we've already gone through shampooing, we've got our hair nice and clean, and there's a few things that I want to show you today. And I want to do it by walking Deanna partly through how to style her hair, but more importantly, allowing her to style it and then share the times where she's doing it correctly or where there's times that maybe she can improve on it so that you can learn from her mistakes. So first of all, product. You've got to use something to create volume, okay? If we're not using some sort of foundational volumizing product, the probability of you getting any sort of volume in your hair is basically nothing. You're not gonna do it. So I've got a couple here that I use. I've got fat hair. This is hands down my favorite volumizing product, period. I'll put a link right here so you can check out a video if you wanna check that out, all about how to use this and why I like it so much. But I've also got another product here called Styling Cream. This is quite a bit stronger. It's much more aggressive, but it's gonna have a lot more texture in your hair. Deanna's hair is pretty thick. She's got a lot of it. So this is gonna be the route that we're gonna take. So what we'll do first is we'll have you apply that. So I'm just gonna have you put that in your hair like you normally would put a product in your hair. And we'll see if she does it right. So okay, show them how much you used. That's about how much you used. Now in most products that would be right. For this product, for her, it's pretty close, but we wanna make sure that we're applying that product from roots to ends. So with the length of her hair, there's probably not gonna be quite enough of this to actually emulsify from the roots all the way to the ends. So let's put a little bit more in. Go like this, there you go, right? There you go, start working that through. The next step would be, once she's got that product in, is now to get your hair dry, okay? So here's a blow dryer. I'm gonna have you start getting your hair dry. We'll see what you do.
I typically brush it
okay.
before I put styling product in it, and then I actually brush it after I put styling product to help it go through.
I was gonna try to like catch her on these things so I could show you guys, but she's actually doing it right.
And I usually start brushing my hair down at the bottom, and then I kind of work my way up.
It's almost like you're married to a stylist.
Yeah.
But that's exactly correct. This is exactly what you would do. You would brush it from the bottom, working your way up. It's the easiest way to detangle your hair. It's the most effective way to detangle it, and it's the easiest on your hair. There you go.
Not too bad for a blonde hair.
For blonde.
For blonde hair.
For blonde. Okay. So the one thing that she did that was good is she tilted her head over to the side to start getting those roots up off of the scalp. But more ideally, she would actually tilt her head completely forward to really not just get those roots out off the scalp, especially on the sides, but get them up off of the scalp. Even better, she'd be using a brush. So what you would do is start brushing it from here. You don't need to start all the way back there and try to pull that forward. You're just trying to get some of those tangles out and smooth the hair out. Once her hair gets dry like this, even though it's not gonna have quite the shape we're looking for yet, those ends are gonna look a lot more polished, which you'll see in just a second. Okay, so we've got our hair dry. Let's start out with flat ironing your hair, and let's see how you do that, and then we'll see if there's anything that we can improve on or help. Correct. Okay.
Okay, so when I flat iron my hair, first of all, I brush it out, make sure it's smooth. Then what I do, because I'm always hurried for time, I split my hair in half. I take this big old pile of hair and I run it through slowly one time. Okay, and then what I do is I take this top section, again I take larger sections and brush through it once.
Why do you take larger sections?
Because I'm in a hurry.
Okay.
And then I take it probably about almost all the way to the top, but not quite up to the root, but almost. And I just run it through slowly, and I try to only go through it one time. And I kind of go a little bit slower through the ends because that's where it's damaged.
Okay.
And that's what I do.
Okay, so what you're gonna find is she's doing a few things right and a couple things not so right. You take larger sections, but for whatever reason, that wasn't a really large section. Here's the concern with taking sections that are too big. Typically, one of the major points that makes one iron better than the other is the way that it delivers heat. And so what you're gonna find is if you take a really big section of hair and you put this iron in it, it's going to be so thick that the hair right in the middle of that section, direct center, is not gonna receive heat the same way that the hair on the outer part that's sitting right against the plates is receiving heat. So if you go through it too quickly, or even at the pace that she went through it, and it's too thick of a section, you're gonna see that it's gonna look smooth, but then that interior part isn't quite as smooth as everything else, and if there's any wave or texture to that, it's gonna shine through later on. And then what else might happen is you might take a larger section like that, go through it, and it just doesn't get smooth the first time. So then you gotta go through it again because it's not getting heat to the hair as evenly as it needs to be as efficient as you want it to be. So many times taking a smaller section or a little bit thinner and going through it one time and then on to the next section is actually a more efficient and a healthier approach to flat ironing it. There were a couple things that you did that I really liked that I do want to point out. Do one more section real quick. So I want you to go through, and I want you to not put your hair in this, but I want you to move through the motion as though you had hair in it, okay, and do the same thing. Okay, right now, if you notice, everything is good. This is locked in, her wrist is locked in, and then at the very end in the last section, she just twisted her wrist just a little bit. That little bit of twist is going to yield that little bit of bend that you see right here, that crease. That's what did that. So what you want to do is put that back in your hand again. You want to do the same thing, but you want to go through it and make sure that when you go through the section, your wrist is locked, your elbow's locked, you go through, and this is naturally going to create a bit of a C shape on longer hair. So you're gonna go through it, and then when you're done and you pull the hair all the way through, you're gonna get as much of a C as you can, and that C is bend, and that bend is creating shape and potentially volume. So that's actually pretty important, but body mechanics is gonna create that by itself. You don't need to twist that wrist at all unless you're trying to create curl. One other thing that she does that I like is she moves the iron at the same pace. When she puts the iron in her hair, she goes through and she starts moving it, and she does the same pace all the way through the ends. So when she gets to the ends, right here, you notice that she doesn't speed up, she doesn't slow down. Many times people will put the iron in, they start to move through, they get to the ends, and they rush. And then it doesn't really look polished all over. It makes your hair look like it's probably more damaged than it actually is. And all of a sudden, you're like, well, I don't know why this isn't really looking like it does when I left the salon. It's usually because we pay a little attention to those ends to smooth those out a little bit. Now we want to walk through how she uses a curling iron to get wave and or kind of a curl. And the reason I wanted to talk about this specifically is because I've never talked on this channel about curling irons. And mainly it's because I don't use them in the salon. Doesn't mean that they can't work, but I have a specific reason that I use flat irons to create wave, and I want to walk through that process, show you how she effectively uses one to create a good look, but also the pros and cons as to why you may or may not want to use flat irons or curling irons. So why don't you go ahead and show us how do you use this curling iron here to create wave?
I take a big old chunk, let's say about this big, and I start kind of towards the root. I close it, turn it, open it a little bit so I can move it down, and I slowly twist. And then what I do is I actually leave a little bit out right here because I don't like a really tight curl down at the bottom.
Okay, so let me tell you a couple things. I'm gonna have you do one more section. I wanna walk through, first of all, why taking a big section again could be problematic. When she puts this in her hair, you can see, she'll turn this around her hair. Now, this hair right here, that on the outside is not near heat, okay? I mean, it is the heat, but it's only heated on one side. So this outer section, that's why you can touch this, is not nearly as hot as the section or that part of hair that's right on the iron. So what you end up with is this whole outer section, especially if it's thicker hair, that doesn't really heat up enough to get the same kind of reaction that the hair on the inside gets. So what people will find is the hair doesn't hold the curl quite the same way. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I'll use the little clamp because that clamp puts the heat on both sides. It still does not distribute the heat in the same way that a flat iron will distribute it, because usually these clamps they're not actually technically heated, they're just hot from, right, the barrel heats them up, so they're not gonna be quite as hot, so it's not gonna be the same temperature as this iron. While she's getting a good look, okay, she's getting a good overall curl and wave to it, there's two things that are still happening right now. One, if you look at these curls, and I'm gonna turn you around so they can see this better. These all look the same. They're all the same amount of wave. It's not a big deal, but truly curly hair does not have the same texture on each curl. Each individual curl is going to be a little bit different. It's what makes it look natural. These barrels, because they're metal, they don't contract and expand. They don't have an easy way of making more or less curl. So they're going to be very similar. Whereas a flat iron, if I put that in your hair, the size of the section I take and how fast I move that iron through your hair is going to determine how much wave I get. So I have a lot of control over getting more curl or less curl, so I can make each wave look a little bit different and ultimately look very natural, but still have a lot of movement, a lot of texture, and a lot of wave. The next thing that's going on here is she also said, I don't go over the ends because I don't want the ends to have too much curl. If you don't go over the ends, you're not having the ability to smooth those ends out. So those ends are gonna have a tendency to still look a little bit raw. When you use a flat iron, typically what you'll do is you'll go through it one time and smooth those ends out, then you put it in, twist it back, and actually use it to create the wave. Now you know you're gonna have ends that are smooth, and you're gonna have a nice wave to it. So you can create the wave and get the smooth ends, which you don't really have the ability to have straighter ends and smooth ends if you're using a curling iron, unless you go through first and go through those with a flat iron, or unless your ends are just automatically smooth. Now you can see this side is done. It's not that it looks bad. It looks great. Like, don't get, I mean, you know, like don't get it wrong. It looks great, but it does also look very uniform. So everything does look the same. So if you're a person that wants your curl to look really natural and you don't want it to look like you curled it, then this may not be the right process for you, because it's really hard to get away from that. However, if you like the ease of a curling iron and you don't mind that it looks a little bit more uniform, this works great for you. Stick with this. Okay, so we're back, and why do I feel so short compared to you right now? Oh my gosh, because I'm not wearing shoes and you're wearing boots. Anyway, so we're back, and we've clearly got our hair styled wavy on one side, curly, wavy on one side, straight on the other. And you can see the difference, but what I want you to notice is where the volume is. Now, before I get into this, remember that this is a third part of a three-part series, and in 1 and 2 of this video series, I talked about big mistakes that are made in long hair, and what I believe to be one of the largest mistakes is not having layers or having layers done incorrectly. And part of the reason that she's getting the shapes that she's getting is because it's layered, in my opinion, correctly. There's enough layers to create movement and take volume out of certain areas so that it can become the illusion that it is in other areas. So if you notice on her right side where we have some wave, she's got a decent amount of wave because it compounds, so wave is going to look bigger. It clearly looks bigger than this side, but it doesn't 100% end up like a massive triangle. She's still getting some lift in there and she's still getting a nice shape. And if you notice, it still is drawing emphasis to her cheek structure and lifting the eye up. And the reason it's doing that is because, quite frankly, there's not enough length down here because of the layering to get that full. Now on the other side, she's got this straight. She could wear either one of these styles. One little thing that we did do in the top is to create a little bit more lift just in the crown here. I actually took a couple sections, parted it off, and you can see there's a little bump right here in the root. And the way we did that was I took the flat iron and I actually put it in her hair. I looked it straight up like this, and then I just bent it and pulled it out. And that gave me a little bend right here, and that allowed me to have this other hair come over it and create a little bit more volume just in this temple area. So creating a little bit of bend in that area will help you create a little bit more volume, and that little bit of volume will create, again, that illusion that it brings the eye up versus looking more triangular. But still, she doesn't have enough length through here to get that really triangular shape. So here's what I need you to do right now. I need you to check out one of these 2 videos right here, and I appreciate you hanging out. Just tell me in the comments that I'm right on all of this and she's wrong on all of it, and we're all gonna be good.
Ladies.
I hate this already.
Right.
Thank you for hanging out. We will see you in the next video. I might not. She probably will because I'm dead. See you guys later.
Bye, everybody.